Hi, I am J. Scott Savage, rocking my COVID-19 haircut here. I am the author of several middle grade series, including the Far World Middle Grade Fantasy series, the Case File 13 Middle Grade Horror series, the Mysteries of Cove Steampunk Dragon series, and my newest book, which comes out September of 2020, is called The Lost Wonderland Diaries, and I am super excited about this one. And in honor of National Librarians Week, I wanted to read a chapter that takes place. It's kind of a little homage from me to librarians. And before I do that, though, I just wanted to say that librarians are my superheroes, and they really have been ever since between my 7th and 8th grade year. I read quite a bit when I was a kid, but it never meant as much to me as when I moved between 7th and 8th grade. So I was already kind of a loner. I didn't fit in. I spent a lot of time daydreaming and imagining, and had my teachers go, "Oh, we don't know what to do with him," and I got picked on a decent amount. But when between 7th and 8th grade, my family moved from California across the country to New Jersey, and New Jersey is a great place, and California is a great place, but that move did not work for me. I was already very quiet and shy, and I didn't know anyone there, and continued to be quiet and shy. And the kids in New Jersey took that as me thinking that California was better, and that I was better than them. And so I got picked on a lot. In fact, I have one of my two main characters in the Lost Wonderland Diaries, Tyrus, is a boy who gets picked on and goes to the library as a place of refuge. And that was based on my experience. It was a time where I kind of had to look for somewhere to go to not get picked on. And in New Jersey, it snowed quite a bit during the school year. And so I wanted it to be somewhere indoors. And I discovered the library, and librarians were amazing. Even when I was cutting school and probably shouldn't have been there, they never questioned me. They helped me find amazing books. I'd just walk along the shelves and just pull out random books and read one. And if I liked it, I'd read everything by that author. And if I didn't, I would put it back. And that's where I discovered books about kids like me, and books by kids who were different. And it really was a life-changing period of time for me. And I remember one time just sitting there looking up at all these shelves of books and thinking, how amazing would it be if one day, like, I wrote a story and other kids could read my story and have it help them the way these books have helped me. And that really is my inspiration for becoming an author. So today, to honor librarians, I'd like to read chapter 4 of my book. It's called The Bookish Tortoise, and our two main characters are Celia, who has dyslexia and hates reading, and her mother is a librarian, and Tyrus, who loves books and basically lives in the library and has a giant backpack full of books. Okay, so chapter 4, The Bookish Tortoise. And what is the use of a book, thought Alice, without pictures or conversations? Celia, what are you doing? My mother hissed, in a tone only a librarian who was also a mother could achieve. Heat spread down my face and cold shot up from my belly to meet in my chest so explosively I thought my heart would stop from the shock. I looked up from my mother to Backpack Boy, to the pile of spilled books, and could think of no response to adequately explain everything that had happened in the last hour since I'd entered the library. I chewed the inside of my cheek and muttered, well, what happened was, it's my fault. The boy, who was apparently not a library thief, said. He pulled off his pack and began shoving books into it. I dropped my things, and your daughter was helping me. Mom looked at me with a doubtful expression, and I dropped to my knees, keeping my face down as I picked up books and handed them to the boy. I couldn't help noticing your reading list, Backpack Boy said, as I handed him books. You have excellent taste. The Phantom Tollbooth is one of the best children's books published in the 1960s, right up there with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And A Wrinkle in Time, well, that's a classic. But you also have contemporary series like Percy Jackson and Wings of Fire, not to mention the nonfiction. What kind of kid talked like that? Mom ate it up, though. She put her hands on her hips and smiled. It's a pleasure to meet another bookaholic. Addicted to reading and proud of it, the boy said. At that moment, if Mom could have traded him for me, I was sure she would have done the deal in a heartbeat. Putting the last of the books in his pack, the boy stuck out his hand. Welcome to the library. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome yourself, Mom said, shaking his hand and beaming brighter than the skylights. You see, Celia, I knew you'd meet new friends. I had no comment. Mom glanced over her shoulder at the group of older ladies. You didn't see anyone running through the library scaring people, did you? She asked us. No, the boy said, zipping his pack. But if we do, we'll let you know. Libraries are places of learning, not scaring. As my mom turned and walked to the front desk with a bounce in her step, I shot him a dark look. Libraries are places of learning, not scaring? He shrugged. Would you rather I told her you nearly gave that woman a heart attack in the mystery section? I clenched my fists. You were stalking me. No, I mean, I was watching you, and I did follow you without my permission. That's called stalking. He pulled off his glasses and polished them again, although there wasn't a speck of dirt on the lenses. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'm Tyrus Weller. Celia Lofton, I said, plopping back into my seat. What's with all the books? Are you a genius? I wish, Tyrus said, sitting in the chair across from me. My parents have threatened to ban me from the library if I don't get better grades this year. I tried not to groan. Clearly the two of us should have been switched at birth. What grade are you in? 8th, Tyrus said, or at least I will be when I start my new school. I tilted my head. Burnell Middle? You go there, he asked. What's it like? No idea, I said. I just moved here. Tyrus grinned. Me too. This is great. We'll each have a friend. I slid my reading list over the green filter. About that. You seem nice, and it would be great to have a friend at my new school. But maybe the two of us shouldn't, hang out. Why not? Is it because of our earlier miscommunication? I couldn't help laughing. You don't talk like most kids our age. I know, he said. My parents say I'm the youngest 80-year-old they've ever met. I think it comes from all the reading I do. I looked around to make sure we were alone. Why did you take those books from the cart? And you think I was stalking you? Tyrus asked. He adjusted his glasses before pressing his hands flat on the table. I know I'm not supposed to touch the returned books, but sometimes I can't help myself. I hunched forward, fascinated. What do you do with them? He bent across the table and paused before whispering. I put them where they belong. What? I put them where they belong, in their spots. I raised an eyebrow. You reshelved them. He nodded. Do you work here? I shook my head. He shook his head. I knew I had problems reading, but my hearing was just fine, and yet I found it almost impossible to believe what my ears were telling my brain. Back up. You sneak to the front desk, steal books off the return cart, and then put them where they go? He blew out a long breath. That's right. Why? It's fun. I just really love books, but since I'm not an employee, I'm not allowed to shelve them. So I sneak. I shook my bangs out of my eyes. Now I'm positive we can't be friends. His face drooped. Why not? I waved at his backpack full of books. I'm not a reader, at least not if I can help it. But you're at the library during summer break, and your mom works here, and you have an amazing reading list. He shook his head. How can you not be a reader? Long story, I sighed. Look, it was great meeting you and all, but it might be best if you go back to stealing books, and I go back to wishing I was anywhere else but here. He folded his arms across his chest. Not happening. I wasn't sure how to respond to that. I hadn't made many friends, and I had plenty of experience losing them. When someone said they didn't want to hang out with me, I slunk away and tried not to show how hurt I felt. I never considered telling them no. I'm not sure I understand, I said. I don't like books, and they seem to be your favorite thing in the world. That doesn't give us much in common. Doesn't matter. Tyrus raised a finger. We've already established that we're both new here. We're going to be attending the same school. We've both committed library crimes. We just can't ignore these kinds of connections because we feel differently about books. He made a good case. What do you want to do? I asked. I mean, ordinarily we'd have more options than books, but since we're in a library, he pointed at my phone. What were you doing on that when I was, stalking me? I grinned and opened my screen. I was playing Minecraft. It's a video game. He shook his head. Not really into video games. I prefer worlds I can see in my head when I'm Reading, I finished for him. Okay, so no books and no video games. That didn't leave a lot of choices. We don't have to read books, Tyrus suggested. We could talk about them. Pass. We sat silently looking at everything but each other. I felt bad. He seemed like a nice kid, for a book nerd. Under other circumstances, we probably could have found something in common. I glanced toward the front desk and an idea occurred to me. I couldn't believe I was considering it, but Tyrus was right. Friends were rare enough that they were worth sacrificing for. It was the least I could do after he'd covered for me with my mom. Besides, I couldn't wait to see his face if my mom said yes to my plan. Come on, I said, jumping up from the table. Where are we going? I shook my head and walked to the front of the library, where I found my mom talking to a teenager about different Star Wars books. It was amazing how much she knew about so many different things. If she ever went on a TV game show where they asked you questions, we would probably be millionaires. After the boy left with a book in hand, I tapped my mom on her shoulder. She narrowed her eyes. I told you, we aren't leaving until... It's not that, I said. Tyrus and I were wondering if it would be okay if we helped you out by shelving the returned books. There's a pretty big stack, and the rest of the librarians seem busy. I might as well have asked her if I could clean the house, take out the trash, and rub her feet. You want to shelve books? She asked. Tyrus's face lit up like it was Christmas, and he'd discovered Santa had brought him everything he'd asked for, complete with an electric train circling the tree. If it's okay with you, I said. Mom put a finger to her lips, slowly regaining her composure. Do you know the Dewey Decimal System? Tyrus straightened so quickly he nearly bounced out of his shoes. The first three numbers represent the main class, division, and section of the book's subject. Like in 724, the 7 stands for the arts, the 2 is the archaeology division, and the 4 means it's a book about archaeology after the 1400s. After that, there's often a period followed by, all right, Mom said, laughing. You know your stuff. Go to it. Tyrus waited until Mom had turned away, then pulled me into a bone-crushing hug. You are the best friend ever. So anyhow, that's chapter 4 of the Lost Wonderland Diaries. And I may or may not have also snuck into libraries and shelved books when I wasn't supposed to. But I just wanted to thank librarians. And I also want to remind you that the Lost Wonderland Diaries comes out September of 2020. And you can get advanced reader copies by going onto Edelweiss or NetGalley and requesting them for Shadow Mountain. You can get an ebook at no charge. If you are a librarian or a reviewer and you would like a print copy, an advanced reader copy over the next few months or whatever to review, then go onto my website and go to the contact page and email me and we will work that out. And then also schools, we have posters and bookmarks and things that we'd love to share with you as well. So thank you for being librarians. Thank you for changing lives. Thank you for being my superheroes. And I hope you enjoy the book.